Hello, 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 and happy St. Patrick's Day. Forgive me, there's spider webs on my webcam. And yes, I wear glasses. I don't need them, but I thought I'd wear them just for you guys, to actually show my support for visually impaired people. I was actually diagnosed with being short sighted in primary school, which here in Australia is from kindergarten to year six, which is about when you're 12 years old. Anyway, I still remember it that it was quite embarrassing because someone came in to check our eyesight, and I was competitive, still am competitive, and they were showing me the chart, and I was squinting, 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 and I couldn't read it. And of course, in my mind, it was, oh, it must be impossible. No one could read it. And then it turned out, no, I was just blind as a bat, and got to the point where I don't know if you know anything about sightedness, but I think I was minus 4.75 in my left eye, which I think was my better eye, and the other one was like minus six or something. Basically, I had these high index plastic lenses that if someone shot me in the eye in my glasses, the bullet would have bounced right off. That's how thick they were. And when I got started, I had contact lenses, but they're really hard on your eyes. And when I started doing tennis more seriously, I just couldn't deal with glasses and contact lenses anymore. Glasses would fall down off my face because you're sweating, and sweat would drip on the glasses, so then you couldn't see. And the contact lenses were just so uncomfortable. I don't care what people say about 24-hour contact lenses; they're not comfortable. Maybe they've gotten better now. So eventually, I had I don't know if it's LASIK or laser surgery, one or the other. I know they're not the same thing, but I had laser surgery fair few years ago now, and still one of the best things I've ever done. Just being able to see like a normal person is something that when you've been struggling with glasses for 10, 20 years, it's amazing. And you certainly don't take it for granted again. But, as you get older, your eyes start failing. So glasses again, and I still hate them. They still fall down my nose. I think it's because my nose isn't big enough or my nose is too flat, whatever it is. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm going to take a drink of this red wine, which is a Chianti. Oh, it's actually quite nice. I will say, as someone who's grown up on Australian red wine, other countries' red wines, by comparison, seem very weak and watered down, but that's actually quite nice. Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. If you don't know what that is, find out. You can Google it. I'm sure most of you will know what St. Patrick's Day is. And I was reminded by a message from my good friend Nadia Sayers, who was Miss Universe Ireland 2020. 2020? I can't remember the years. I'm sorry, Nadia. You're probably listening to this because Nadia's actually really good in that she actually listens to my stuff and reads my emails. But she was I was watching one of her Instagram stories today, and she was saying how she basically had a long day. So I just sent her a message saying I hope everything's okay, and also because Nadia works in mental health, and I have some idea as to how tiring and draining that can be. And then she works with kids as well, which by itself can be tiring and draining because I've done that too with tennis. I just sent her a message to make sure everything was okay. She said she was going through a bit of a hard time. Not that anyone would know because she doesn't complain about it. And I just said, take care of yourself because what you do is really, really draining. And then she messaged back saying that she really, really appreciated that. And that just got me thinking. And that's the reason I wanted to just do a video for you guys this week rather than doing a typed email. And that's also partly because I've been doing so much typing in front of the computer. I just feel like can't be bothered typing. I'm just going to talk. But this all became very clear to all of us when Chesley Christ suicided. I was actually reading why the phrase is commit suicide, and that's actually because it in the Bible anyway, or Christianity, or one of those two, killing yourself was seen as a sin. So it's like committing a sin, committing suicide, and I don't like that. So now I just say suicide. Not that that makes the story any better, but all of you, I would imagine, would have been hugely aware of how much outpouring of grief there was, how many people put posts up, and how many put the sort of cliche, be kind to everyone, you don't know what they're going through. But I mean, I knew this was going to happen, and maybe this is a cynical part of me, or maybe it's just a realist in me. I don't know. Maybe there's not much of a difference. But I knew that that sort of mood of empathy and sympathy wasn't going to last long. In fact, I'm not even sure that the mood really was there. I think there are some people who were very, very badly affected by it, and they may not have made much noise. Because when you're really affected by something, you don't normally, at least a lot of people don't normally feel like jumping on social media and talking about it. And then there's always some people who just take every opportunity to sort of posture and try and put themselves forward as some kind of hero, and that just really makes me sick, especially when it was a situation like the one we had. But it was staggering to me. It was staggering. It really hit home because I didn't know Nadia was going through any kind of going through just a tough time or having a hard day, because the Irish are always so happy. I think they're my favorite people on earth, are the Irish, because they are. I don't think I've ever met an Irish person I don't like, whether it's someone like Nadia, obviously Chloe, my podcast co-host. They're both just genuinely lovely people, kind people, and no matter what they're going through, they're always available to listen to you or to lend an ear to you, or give you a hug if you need it. I would imagine. I still haven't been to Ireland. I'm hoping to remedy that soon. But my point is just to remember that, you know, what happened to Chesley, or what Chesley did, it wasn't that long ago. And it's amazing to me how quickly people can sort of forget that and start being genuinely horrible to other people. And when I say that, that's probably an unfair thing to say. But more specifically, it's people making everything about them. And that's a kind of a different problem, because it's more specific. And when I say that, it's so there are some people, and we've all been in this place. I know I've been in this place, and it's normally when you're not in such a good place yourself, or you're not in a good mood, or you're tired, or you're angry, or you're drained, and you take everything personally. There can be something completely innocuous that happens, but for some reason it just really triggers you and really pisses you off, and you take it personally. Like a good example is when someone cuts you off in traffic, and you make this assumption that, oh, this person must be a horrible person, or it must be a person of this gender or this nationality, or that person must just be a giant, a giant dick. Forgive my language, a giant, pain in the ass. It must be just the worst person in the world. And sometimes you need to stop yourself and go, well, actually, maybe they just didn't see me. Maybe they were in a rush because something horrible has happened to them. And it's this issue that I see popping up again and again, is certain people. I think we all do this to some extent, but I think some people, it's almost their default. Everything is about them. It's like the same sort of people, I think, who, when you go to them with a problem that you have, like you're having a hard time, and they don't listen to you, they try to one up your problems. Like, oh, you think you got a problem? Well, let me tell you about my problems. And they don't listen, and they take everything personally, and they're always sure they're correct. And some of these people are the same sorts of people who, when something horrible happens, like what happened with Chesley, they're the ones posting up about kindness, and you never know what someone's going through, so be kind. And I've sort of been looking at that because, as you know, I took a bit of a step back from pageantry. And I've been looking at it now that I've had some time away and going, the hypocrisy really, really bugs me. I think it's one of my biggest peeve. It really annoys me that some of these same people, one day they're posting up about being kind, and then the next day they're posting horrible things or saying horrible things about someone else. Now, I don't, without knowing the story, without knowing the full story, and just making assumptions. And look, I don't know about you, but I'm very aware of when I'm talking behind someone's back. I'm not proud to say that I do, but occasionally I do. And especially in pageantry, it's almost impossible not to because we're always talking about what happens behind the scenes because there's very little transparency, honest transparency in pageantry. So we have to talk behind the scenes a lot of the times. But I think that the point was driven home for me today. Even today, I was playing with my best friend tennis. We play once a week. The weather has not been great here in Australia. It's actually been really terrible. There have been people dying because of the floods, which is not usual for our country. Um, but he works in real estate. Now, as you can imagine, the COVID pandemic, together with a spate of bushfires and floods and pandemic, then floods, it pushed up the cost of construction by, I think the cost drove them up by 25%. So two really big construction companies recently had to declare bankruptcy. It was really ugly, really heartbreaking. And my friend, he works in real estate, and he's had a lot of people pull out of contracts because they just, it's 25 or $30,000 out of pocket for them, so they just pull out. But he's done the work, and so now he's done work with the assumption that there's a substantial chunk of money coming in, and suddenly that money is not coming in, and everyone's panicking, and so obviously it's a stressful time for him. But again, and similar to Nadia, I never would have known that he was not necessarily having a hard time, but that certainly he was going through some stressful times because unless I'd asked him, because I'd seen what happened in the news, I read about it in the news, and I just happened to ask him, and then he told me, yeah, it's really stressful times, but he's not the sort of person who kicks up a big fuss, and I think that's my point, is that very often the people who need the most help or are going through the toughest times, first off, they're empathetic. So they're the people who always try to help everyone else. Secondly, they don't complain, even when they probably should say something, and it wouldn't even really be complaining, but just saying something. They don't do that because they're too busy listening to everyone else. And then they hit that point, and we all have a certain threshold where we start thinking really dark thoughts. Some people are just will get there sooner than others. It's just a term of, well, not just, but it's mental and emotional resilience. Some people are hard as nails and never go there. Other people may be a bit easier to get there. They may be a bit more fragile for whatever reason. And no judgment on them. It's just the way it is. But, when someone like Chesley does what she does, and I read what some people were saying and saying they can't understand it, I don't understand that. Because if you have any experience being a human being or any experience going for something and then achieving it, and then just that just makes the problem worse because suddenly you feel more pressure. That imposter syndrome is even worse because you're now even more worried people are going to find you out, at least in your head. Like, it was horrible what happened, but I could understand it. And maybe that's because I've been in a similar situation, not that situation, but in a similar situation myself. But to me, so much would be solved by people not causing or not being part of the problem in the first place by being nice people, right? Just being kind. That cliche thing that everyone was posting about, like, you don't know what someone's going through. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that person that you're about to yell at might have just lost their partner, might have just lost their child, might have just been laid off from a job. That, to me, practically day to day, that's what that means. So before you yell at someone, before you get your back up for no good reason, right? Most of the time we fly off the handle, us humans fly off the handle. It's not really for any good reason. And then most of us, after we fly off the handle, feel bad about it. I think people who yell and then feel good about it, there's something very wrong with them. I think they're very egotistical. Like if I yell at someone, and it very rarely happens, but if it does, I don't feel good about it. Like I'd probably go and apologize straight afterwards, even if in inverted commas they deserved it. I don't think yelling at anyone makes anything better. I mean, it makes them more confrontational, or it crushes them, and that's when really horrible things can happen. So we can help each other practically by simply putting into practice those cliches that so many of us throw about with such sort of gay abandon, and be kind, you never know what other someone's going through. Well, that's really cool, you posted it on your Instagram, but how about actually doing it? How about not posting it 1 minute and then going on and being horrible to someone the next, even if in your mind they deserve it? Why would you do that? And it really says more about the people who do it than anyone else. Like, I don't know what, you can't be a happy person and be in a good place and still be tearing strips off someone else. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. So if we could do that, that would create less of the problem. And then the other thing is really work on your listening skills. The old cliche, we have 2 ears and one mouth, so maybe we should listen twice as much as we talk. This is one thing that kind of annoys me about pageantry, and it certainly annoyed me when I was working in a girls' school as a tennis coach. And the girls, it wasn't their fault. They kept being told, oh, what you have to do is find your voice, find your voice, find your voice. And I get that. I do. But they were told that being a leader, and you might believe this, that being a leader, especially as a woman in today's world, is about finding your voice and saying what you think. And I'm like, dude, yeah, that's really good, but that's half of the equation. Because if all you're doing is talking, speaking, saying your mind, and you're missing that piece where you have to take responsibility for what you've said and listen, because the meaning of the communication, as I say, is a response you get. If all you're being taught and all you have in your head is, oh, I have to say what I want to say, I have to say my opinion. Well, imagine what happens in a room of 100 people where everyone believes that. You're not going to get anything done. It's just full of people yelling at each other. No one is listening. And I honestly feel on social media and in pageantry, maybe not in particular, but definitely it applies in pageantry as much as anywhere else. It's all yelling, 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 yelling. Look at my achievement here. Look at my crown here. Look at this amazing advocacy I'm doing here. Where's the listening? That's the thing. And people go, oh, I never would have thought that person was depressed. And yes, some people hide it very well. But to me, it's like, well, how much time have you actually spent listening, genuinely listening to the people around you? And to me, it's not hard to pick up on certain cues. And yes, I've worked in this area like counseling and things like that and life coaching. So yes, maybe I'm more tuned that way. I get it. But they say there are 3 stages of listening. Number 1 is you're not really listening. You're listening, but you're typing on your phone at the same time. So you're not listening. Number 2, which is where most of us live, and it's a very dangerous place to live, is you're listening, but you're only listening because you want to respond. You're listening and you're asking yourself, well, what's the perfect thing for me to say in response? So you're not actually listening to the person and giving them your undivided attention. You're making it about yourself because you want to say the perfect thing so that you come off good. The third level of listening, which is where I want you to try to, let's just say for this week, try to have a conversation where you get to this level, is where you're listening to understand. You're not listening to respond, which is level 2. You're listening to understand. And when you do that, I have a hard time believing that you're going to find it that difficult to understand someone. When you really listen to someone with your soul, with your heart, you take in the non-verbal cues. You look at whether they're happy or not. Do they look tired or not? And then you put that together with what you know about them. I've done this sometimes. I mean, I did it. It's part of who I am because I've done so much coaching, like listening. But I've had so many people come to me and say, "Oh, that was such a good conversation. You're so easy to talk to. Or you're such a good conversationalist." And when I look back at the conversation, it's like I maybe said 10% of the words, 5%, 20%. But people feel they've had a really great conversation with me because I listened. And I didn't listen to respond. I listened to understand. And by the way, when you do that, if you don't understand what someone is saying, you ask them to clarify. So when someone says, "Yeah, it's just not going so well," if you're listening to respond, you go, "Yeah, that's just the way life is, isn't it? Yeah, my life's not going so well either." But if you're listening to understand and you look at that person and you can just clue in, look, something doesn't look quite right. The intonation of their voice is a little off. They sound a little sad and they're normally not like that. Or they've been this sad. They've kind of been like that for the past month or two. Like, just go, well, just ask. Like, well, you sound a little sad. Like, is everything okay? Or you look a little tired. Or I've noticed that you're not as happy as normal. Or you haven't turned up to these parties or these gatherings. Is everything okay? You don't. And so many people go, "Oh, I couldn't do that because," and their fear is, and again, it cycles back to being about them. It's like, "Oh, if they tell me the problem, I won't be able to solve it. Like, what do I say?" That's a stupid question to ask. Well, maybe it's not stupid. It's a caring thing to ask, I guess I should say. But you don't need to solve the person's problem. What you need to do is make them feel understood. Because most of us, if we actually felt understood, we wouldn't feel alone. If we felt that there was one person in this world who genuinely understood us, genuinely got us, genuinely were our people and were rooting for us, even though we're not perfect, but someone really gets where we're at, what we're struggling with and why we're struggling with it, why we're not perfect, our frustrations, our fears. If one person in the world understood that, we wouldn't feel alone. And then we wouldn't have so many of the problems that our society has. Where you go, how could someone suicide? They were surrounded by all these people who love them. I guarantee you, you might think that, but they didn't feel that, right? So please, 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 I implore you, listen more than you talk and listen to understand. And anytime you put up a cliche in a caption on your post on Instagram, and it's a good meaning cliche, like, you never know what anyone's going through, so be kind. I get it. That's a cliche, but it's a good one. Try putting it into actual practice or ask yourself, if I was to put this cliche into practice today, what would that look like? How could I actually put it into practice today? So people say, be kind always. Okay. Well, first off, always is incredibly tough. Secondly, how could I actually show kindness today? And it's not kindness it's not really kindness when you're kind to someone who you like, right? When you're getting on with someone and you're kind to them, yes, it's kindness, but the real test is when you're kind to someone who you don't really like or who doesn't really deserve it, in inverted commas. So someone, let's say, who's been a little mean to you. I'm not talking about going through an abusive relationship and being kind to them. No. But let's say, again, someone cuts you off in traffic. And rather than giving them the finger, horning them and tailgating them for the next 5 minutes, yelling at them, how about just, okay, I'm going to practice kindness by not making that about me, not assuming the worst about that person, and genuinely at least giving yourself the possibility conceptually that maybe if I was in that person's shoes, maybe I would have done the same thing. Maybe. Because I don't know what they're going through. You never do. That's another one of those cliches. Like, you never know what someone's going through. Well, if you genuinely don't, how can you judge them? How can you? So that person who cut you off in traffic and you're thinking they're the worst person in the world, what happens if they just lost their partner? What happens if they just heard that their partner's in the hospital after a horrendous car crash? Would you still get angry at them for cutting you off? Because some people do. That's what some people are like. They're so angry and they're so egotistical and so narcissistic. And I want nothing to do with those people because I've met people like that and I can't stand them. So that's my little rant for you for today. I hope all of you are doing well. I know that Pageant are getting back underway. Um, and it was nice. I was sort of speaking to Danielle, my podcast co-host, earlier this morning. It would have been late last night for her. It was really nice catching up with her. Haven't chatted to her for a while, and hearing about how her Galaxy preparations are going, and she's given in her notice, so she'll be finishing up her 9 to 5 on April 1st. Only Danielle could do that. I'm like, hang on, is this whole thing been an April Fool's joke? And she's like, no, it's just the date that happened to fall on. So, she's going full time with her creative work, her photography, and obviously her styling. And it was good to chat with her. And I ran her through some business ideas that I'd like to partner with her on. And we had a really good chat about that. And I'm excited about some of that stuff. And yeah, but that's all besides the point. My main goal is to check in with you guys, make sure you're doing well. But as I keep reminding you, and some of you are not hearing me, so I'm going to keep beating you over the head with this until you hear me. Do not rest your entire concept of yourself, of who you are, on pageantry. Even worse, do not rest your entire concept of yourself on success in pageantry. It never ends well. It might temporarily, for a short time, be okay, and then it just ends up as a complete disaster. Please, please, please promise me that you are working on your life outside of pageantry, and it's a life that you're excited to get back to when the pageant finishes, not one you're dreading to get back to. The three main areas, I've said this again as well before, three main areas that everyone needs to focus on is their health, both mental and physical, their wealth, so their money, what are they doing for money, their career, and their relationships, both with their intimate partner, if they have one, and with their friends and their family. Those are the three core areas that everyone has in common: your health, your wealth, and your relationships. So if you're not firing, making at least some good progress, it's not about being perfect, but if you're not making some good progress in those three areas, don't use pageantry as a crutch. Don't use it to try and fill some gaping hole you have. That's not going to work. So take on pageantry as an amazing hobby, an amazing chance to network with other amazing women and men as well. But please don't use it to boost up your self-esteem or crutch for your self-esteem, because if there's one thing that should be blindingly obvious to all of us by this stage, is that that just ends in disaster. So I'm going to leave it there. Happy St. Patrick's Day again. I'm going to finish this glass of Chianti. I'm a little sad that I can't get a genuine Guinness, but when I do stop over in Ireland, Nadia, you're still listening to this, I love you. And I am looking forward to a real Guinness. I want to tour that Guinness factory sometime soon. But hope you're all doing well. If you're not, take care of yourself. If you are, take care of someone else. And let's actually put our words into action, and let's learn to listen more than we talk. Yes, finding your voice is incredibly important. Learning to listen is at least as important. Speak to you next time.